Hello, people of the world of the internet watching retro car reviews. Welcome to this, my 1983 Datsun by Nissan 280ZX GL 2-seater. As many of you are aware, I've been doing a little mini resto build series on this thing for the past couple months, and today I finally get to review it. So let's get it up in the air, nerd out the tech specs, see how it was once constructed, and then go give it the beans.
Lights are on.
All right, first things first, this feels weird reviewing this now. Because this is an 83, the final year of production, 82 and 83 models had these little pinstripes in the tail lamps. Clearly that is not the factory pea shooter that this thing came with. It is inspired by the of-the-era Fujitsu vertical tip muffler systems that were once produced in Japan for these. It is all constructed out of stainless steel, with welds tighter than a robot's butthole thanks to the spaceship fabricator. External mounted fuel pump, easy to access for maintenance. A weird heat shield between the fuel tank and the diff. Transmitting the power down to the ground is done via an R200 open type rear differential with a 3.9 final drive ratio. Some models did come equipped with an R180 diff, and the turbo models had a taller final drive. Out back, the 280ZX utilizes an all steel in construction semi-trailing arm rear suspension design. Originally this car came with Takiko brand struts, but it now has KYB gas adjust made in Japan. And if you look even further up there, I paired it with a set of new in the box when I found them still, rare Takiko lowering springs that give about an inch drop in an increased spring rate to enhance handling. That rear anti-sway bar bolted directly to the kinda W brace measures in at approximately 20 millimeter in diameter, not bad. The 79 to 83 280ZX chassis code S130 was available in two different body configurations, a 2+2 with a longer roofline, and the 2-seater which you see above, the GL model with the 5-speed manual and non-turbo, weighs in at 2,860 pounds, one of the lighter configurations. Little stamped steel chassis brace right here, and up above the cut and the heat shield is a single-piece steel drive shaft. While it is a unibody, there is a consistent frame rail that connects front and rear subframes together. Making up the sound department, I don't need to measure because I already know, it's 3-inch or 76 millimeter diameter piping with V-band clamps and a flex portion right after the long tube header. As far as the transmission is concerned, technically there were 4 different gearboxes available in the S130 chassis Zs. This one is equipped with the in-house designed FS5W71 Bravo close ratio 5-speed manual transmission. The W stands for it has Warner Synchros. Also has a maximum torque input rating of about 366 newton meters or 270 pound-feet. Kind of a stout gearbox for the power level of this car. In the steering department, after the mid-cycle refresh, these cars were available with the Power Assist Rack in Pinion, which this one is equipped with, which when I bought the car was leaking like crazy. So I replaced it with a Reman OEM one. Up front, it utilizes an all-steel in construction McPherson strut style suspension with cast iron knuckles and fresh new ball joints on this thing. Front dampening, same as out back, paired with a set of those Takiko lowering springs. You can see the starter right here, oil filter, ease of maintenance on the passenger side of the engine, not bad. Ease of maintenance on the driver's side, especially when these cars are stock, kind of sucks because it's not a cross flow head. Now I did install a long tube header as well as modified the lower heat shield under the intake manifold, which did make it a lot easier to maintain. Also some gold heat wrap on there to keep the temps down. Front anti-sway bar measures in at approximately 23 millimeter and change diameter. See that right there? That is a proper steel skid plate actually designed to protect stuff, unlike modern hairy cardboard. All right, time for the braking test. Nothing behind me. Ready, set, stop. Okay, come to a stop there, buddy. I mean, that was very smooth. I didn't mash on the brakes because the car is 42 years old and it just feels wrong abusing a car like that that's this old. But the brakes are effective for the weight of the car. I mean, the stopping distance was about as I would expect. That braking was just made possible thanks to a single piston Takiko caliper with a 252mm or 9.9-inch front rotor. The wheels, which I have upgraded to a set of period correct Hayashi Racing Streets in a 15x8 with a 0 offset spaced to a -5, wrapped in a set of 225/60 15-inch BF Goodrich radial TA tires. Originally, these non-turbo Zs had a 14-inch pizza cutter 6-spoke alloy, and the turbo cars had a larger 15-inch diameter wheel, so I went with something period correct of the era. All the calipers were complemented with a fresh set of stainless steel braided brake lines. You'll notice it's got about a foam fingers width for ride height thanks to those Takiko lowering springs. One of the improvements of the S130 over the S30 chassis was better drag coefficiency, and I aided that with a set of these clear aero headlight covers. The previous owner installed these yellow glass fogs. I decided to keep them. Looking through the front grille, you can see the lower side of the airbox, which is made out of metal in baby blue in color. The lower rocker trim in rub strips were added from a previous owner, and they are riveted to the car, so I left them. Now, this right here is a factory option on these cars, a locking fuel filler door. It's about as flush and meaty as you can get right there. Rear ride height, about a foam fingers width. Out back, you have another single piston caliper, but you go up to a 258mm or 10.1-inch rotor. The wheels, they are staggered with a 15x9 -13 offset Hayashi Racing Street, wrapped in a set of 245/60 15-inch BF Goodrich radial TA tires. In the name of science, we'll now give this thing the beans. First, assessment of bolstering. No, it doesn't really have much bolstering to it, other than the fact that the seats are very soft cloth and it grips your fabric, so it creates mechanical adhesion between your clothes and the seat. Because this is a GL model, it has these light gray striped cloth seats, almost corduroy. The seats are manual adjust, and that's about it. The shift boot is rubber, actually looks like the typical one you find under the console to separate the transmission tunnel from the inside of the vehicle. As far as drive modes go, it's 1983. You are the drive mode. The shifter throw, it's long, but it's very mechanical and crisp. I actually really like how this car shifts. It does have cruise control. That is technically a drive mode. And as far as launch control goes, you are the launch control. However, this might not be my car here pretty soon, so I'm not going to abuse it. I'll give it a light launch. Ready? There you go. Get it! Yeah! Sounds amazing. That's good. For how old this car is, and the sound just adds to the effect. It's a vibe. It's fun. Hood pop. I love backwards opening hoods. Underneath the hood of the 1983 Datsun by Nissan 280ZX is the L28E, which is a cast iron block with aluminum head, single overhead cam, 12 valve, 2.8 liter naturally aspirated straight six. That produces 145 horsepower at 5,200 RPM and 156 pound-feet of torque at 4,000 RPM. There was also a optional turbo model, which this one isn't because I just told you that it wasn't. Modern inline engines now have what is called cross-flow cylinder heads, where you have the intake manifold and exhaust manifold on opposing sides. The L series engines, however, have the intake manifold above the exhaust manifold, and as you know, heat rises, so that is not as optimal. But what they did was implement a little cooling fan that blows fresh air up over the engine and across the fuel pipes as well as the intake manifold to help reduce heat soak. That guy right there is the AFM airflow meter. Digging in a little bit deeper on the 2753cc inline six, it is over squared at an 86 by 79 millimeter bore and stroke with an 8.8 to 1 compression ratio thanks to some flat top pistons. Moving up to the P79 high quench cylinder head, it is timing chain driven and features a Bosch L-Jetronic port fuel injection system. Arguably one of the best features about this car in the engine bay though is the extendable maintenance light, when cars actually were designed for people to work on them. Functional hood vents. That guy right there is for the vacuum actuated cruise control system. 1983 had cruise control. Because it's the 80s, you got a traditional brake booster with a little heat shield to protect it from the header down there. Washer reservoir is up here. I did a couple upgrades in here as well, including the 8mm plug wires, as well as a Cusco front strut tower brace. The previous owner installed this dual core aluminum radiator. This will now be the first time I've driven this car since I've done all this work to it. So these reactions are literally my first impressions. Sounds phenomenal. That is for sure. Aside from a slight drone, not really slight, a major drone at 2,500 RPM exactly, it sounds phenomenal. You know, I drove this thing before I did the lowering springs on it, and it was floaty boaty, like driving an old Crown Victoria. It's tight now, and the steering's got some heft to it too. I mean, the downside of it being a 42-year-old car and the semi-trailing link suspension in the rear is you pick up all the little imperfections in the road, which you do on modern sports cars too, but because this car is older, it just comes as rattles and bangs, and that's not the greatest. There's more to improve upon on this car, and a lot of it would just be addressing old age stuff. It has quite a few new bushings in the front of the car, which is why it feels nice and tight up there in the steering department. The rear end needs a little bit of work. These cars also suffer from a squat issue too. When you get on at full throttle, the ass end just drops drastically, and the wheel isn't centered exactly by design in the rear wheel well. It's weird. It actually sits somewhat forward. See, it wasn't bad over that bump right there. You just hear all the rattles and bangs because it's an old car. A lot of that could be addressed too with a little bit of sound deadening and some adhesive felt in between plastic panels. I'm sure that's all dried up. New bushings out rear. I would actually do a aftermarket upgraded rear subframe and upgrade the rear suspension on this thing, so that way you can adjust it's not really caster, but adjust the positioning of the rear wheel better to center it in that wheel well, make it more visually pleasing. There's a lot to love about this thing. For its age, it rips along too. Puts a huge smile on your face. That is for sure. The brakes, while they're not the biggest, the line upgrade I did on this thing, very noticeable. Nice direct feel in the braking. I think a bigger set of upgraded brakes on this would go a long way too if you're gonna drive it aggressively. Man, there's a little bit of a dead spot in the middle of the steering. I think it's just, even though this is a new rack, maybe tweaking the alignment settings would address that a bit, but also just the age of the car. But it does have some nice heft to it. It's just, when you come back to center, there's a little bit of 1980s happening right there that I don't know if that could actually be modified out of it. It might just be the design of the car. It's a lot of fun. And because this thing only weighs 2,800 pounds and change, which is not super light for the horsepower and torque level, it does not feel heavy. It feels like a nice weight. It's a good weight, a little bit long of a car. It's got a long nose on it. I sense a little bit over certain bumps when I'm on throttle, I can't tell, but I think it's rubbing a little bit the rear tire, because I did put a very aggressive fat meaty tire on this thing. But I did check the speedometer with GPS and it's dead on. Perfect, accurate speedometer now with this tire size. So that is a huge plus. The 3.9 final drive ratio on this thing too gives you a good power band. It's torquey, the gearing feels about right. It's kind of long gears, but, and you can see right now at about 2,600 RPM, it's not too loud in here, but if I drop down a little bit to about 2,500, you can hear the drone in here. I don't really mind it because this is a 42-year-old sports car. It doesn't really bother me, and it sounds so good on the outside especially that it's kind of like, yeah, whatever, it drones, but it sounds phenomenal. I don't know if I'd still feel that way on a 3-hour-long drive. It would be definitely easy to fix with a resonator on the mid-pipe, one of those reverse-facing offshoot resonators. I think that would solve the issue 100%. I ran out of time with this project. There's more stuff I'd love to do with it. Now there is a possibility, because this is a giveaway for this car, that the winner will choose cash instead of the car if they don't want this thing. And then in that instance, I don't know, it'll be up to the viewers if you want to see me do more to this. Storage capacity. This thing's got good struts on it. Like really strong struts. It's a workout. Being that this is not a 2+2, you could probably put 4 sets of golf clubs back here. And you can see it does have the original bags to stow the T-tops in. It's actually got a ton of room back here because it doesn't have a strut tower brace like the newer Z's did. There's a little compartment right here for stuff. The louvers act as a camping situation. You could sit right here and stay out of the sun. Don't slam it. Compared to a lot of new 2-seater sports cars I've reviewed, there is a way more passenger legroom in this car. Floor mats, lower half of the door cards, and the transmission tunnel are all wrapped in a light gray carpet. They have 280ZX embroidered in them. Like, I have heels on and my legs are stretched out comfortably. The bottom of the doors also have some map pockets, back when you actually needed to carry a map. The cloth is like baby soft. The carpets are baby soft. Behind the seats, there are little storage cubbies. They also have, what is this, lumbar? Well, that's kind of neat. Even the dashboard carpet is baby soft. This is not standard, but definitely recommended since old dashboards tend to crack. Also has power windows, power door locks, no remote obviously, but it's got dual power mirrors. Because 1983, it's got a traditional manual parking brake. You see the fuse box down there in the footwell. It's got a little 280ZX plaque. One of the coolest features about this car is the map light is a little telescopic eyeball you can adjust and move around. It's really hot out, or else I'd take the T-tops off, but they do have a little lock mechanism built in, as well as suede removable privacy shades. Downside of a 42-year-old car, this visor never wants to stay clipped in. Nothing's broken, just worn. As far as climate control goes, it does have air conditioning and it blows ice cold. While you could get digital gauges as an option, this one has the analog ones. Temp gauge in a dual position fuel gauge where it'll actually show you exactly once you get below a quarter of a tank on a separate gauge. Old school Z logo on the horn, which they give you 3 buttons for. While there isn't anywhere to put a smartphone or to plug one in, there doesn't need to be because phones were the size of toasters back then. Wouldn't be a Z car without the triple gauges in the center. You got oil pressure, battery voltage, as well as a quartz clock that not only tells you the time, but the date, as well as it has a lap timer built in. There's 2 little tiny vents in the dash, so you can have one blowing on your face and your knees at the same time. This one was originally equipped with the Dolby noise canceling AM/FM tape player. Sadly, the stereo in this thing does not work. I ran out of time to make videos to tear this apart and fix it. I'm kind of bummed out. Well, that little switch right there is for the fog lights that were installed by the previous owner. You can do what you can do. I fixed the sound department with the exhaust, so at least there's that. This one does have an aftermarket billet shift knob. However, the original is in the glove box, which has the original owner's manual as well as 2 little cup holder trays if you want to get your lap wet. One of the best parts about this car though is the chimes that it makes. One of my favorite features this thing has though, is you push this little check button. It runs a little system diagnostic scan of your lights, your fluid levels, and just main basic stuff before you drive the car. As well as
lights are on.
There's a robot lady to remind you if you forget your lights, as well as a couple other things like if your door is open. When you're driving a 42-year-old car, there's lots of sounds and creaks and moans and whizzes and beeps and knurling sounds. And some of it has to do with its age, and some of it just has to do with the way cars were constructed that long ago. It goes to show that as much as we want to say new cars are terrible, there's a lot of things about new cars that are actually a huge improvement over cars of the past. A real argument you could make though is whether or not new cars will age as well as these cars did. Aging well is definitely a relative term, however. The raw analog feeling you get driving this gives a certain level of excitement, of feeling connected with the road, and also a slight pucker factor of wondering what the next thing will be to fail on the car that you'll have to replace. Kind of like an aging body. I will say having ice cold AC on a 42-year-old car is a huge flex. That's all you need right there. The lowered ride suspension, while it does make this thing actually handle quite a bit better, it also comes with a sacrifice of you feel every dip and bump and little crevice in the road, as you would with a lot of new cars too though. However, it's 42 years old, so it's a little jarring. You do have to slow down quite a bit more over train tracks and poor infrastructure than you would a modern car. But that's the same if you lower a brand new vehicle as well. So fuel economy, actually it's doing pretty good fuel economy wise. Better than I thought it would. The Celica Supra didn't do as good as this thing did fuel efficiency wise. There are problems with this generation of car that could be addressed with aftermarket components, but you really got to spend some money and some time tinkering with things to work out issues and improve upon the old design of the car and actually make the car drive better. If you look at the price with inflation, this car is considerably more expensive, even for a non-turbo model, than a New Z, which is only a turbo model. The turbo models were in the high 60s with inflation back in 1983. But also that doesn't take into effect the power of the dollar and wages and the cost of goods, all that stuff. I'm not an economist, but there's a lot of other factors that come into play with that situation. If there's one thing I learned from my experience owning this car is that if you are in a place in life where you can take on an older car as a project, especially one from the undesirable area of the late 70s, early 80s, I highly recommend doing it because it's worth saving this piece of history. While they may be flawed in some areas and not as beautiful as the cars of the muscle car era or as desirable as the cars from the 90s, there's still a lot to love about these, and they definitely have a huge character factor that grows on you. It is now time to give the 83Z some scores. Starting the bean score, the assessment of the feeling you get in your gut when you give the beans. And it's getting a rating of. Next is the cookie score, the assessment of value. And based off the original MSRP in 1983 of this car as equipped, which was just under $15,000, or adjusted to today's inflation in the low $50,000 range, it gets a rating of. This really emphasizes just how good value the New Z is. Think about that. This was the non-turbo model, and it costs more than the 400 horsepower New Z. Next is the wrench score, the assessment of ease of maintenance, and it gets a rating of. Next is the squid score, the assessment of handling, and it gets a rating of. Lastly is the penguin score, the assessment on how much I personally like a vehicle. And this 280ZX gets a rating of. I had a lot of fun with this project. What initially drew me to this car is this is the least desirable of all of the Z car generations. And I have a special place in my heart for stuff like that. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and see you soon with another. Bye.